The fourth and final Nike Cup quarterfinal takes place at a wet, cold and windy Lakeside Stadium tonight as South Melbourne play host to Spring Hills in what is a real opportunity for both of these clubs to take a meaningful step closer to silverware. Bulleen Lions await the winner in the semi-final, and with Heidelberg United the heavy favourites to advance from the other side of the draw, there's serious potential for an all-heavyweight Nike Cup final in the coming months. Alternatively, South Melbourne's opponents tonight, Spring Hills, would have the opportunity to run a true gauntlet if they were to pull off the most unlikely of trophy wins coming through South Melbourne, then Bulleen, and then possibly Heidelberg in the final. Meanwhile, for South, they sit relatively pretty coming into tonight in second spot on the NPLW ladder, but with much ground to make up to catch up to the Burgers and a tight race for finals still very much on foot. They'll be hoping to justify their heavy favourites tag for tonight's game and keep their hopes of multiple silverware, of a season winning multiple silverware alive and kicking. South Melbourne and Spring Hills, the two teams going head to head. Spring Hills, of course, playing their first season back in the top flight of Victorian football and accompanying what has been an impressive campaign thus far with a very solid run deep into the Nike Cup. Both teams have made a couple of changes to their starting 11s from the weekend, partly due to a cup tie or two. South Melbourne have made two changes, one outfield, one in goal. Ayana Aoyagi comes in between the sticks for South, taking the place of Christina Esposito, who starts tonight on the bench. Meanwhile, Nikki Furukawa is back in the starting 11. She takes the place of Eva Gutschmidt, who of course already played in the Nike Cup earlier this season for FV Academy. Spring Hills, meanwhile, have a couple of changes of their own. Christina Souza and Chelsea De Silva are into the starting 11. Bella Stringfellow is out, whilst Mami Ambo is, of course, also unavailable, having played for South Melbourne, in fact, earlier this campaign, including in the Nike Cup. And with the whistle of our referee, Angelique Manjon, we are underway at Lakeside Stadium. Oscar Rutherford with you for the call tonight as Spring Hills look to continue their highly impressive first campaign in the top flight of football with a run all the way to the final four of the Nike Cup. It won't be straightforward against a South Melbourne team, albeit under a relatively new head coach, Justin Mikulev, taking over from Matt Shepherd a few weeks ago. South coming into tonight's game off the back of what was a much needed and really impressive 1-0 win against Alamein, one of their direct rivals for final spots. That sole goal from Franny Iamano making the difference at the weekend. Spring Hills, meanwhile, they too are coming off the back of a highly impressive performance in NPLW in the most recent weekend, a 3-1 win against Essendon Royals as they move further and further away from the relegation zone, comfortably sitting in mid-table. They really have taken like ducks to water to NPLW football, and we'll see how they fare in tonight's contest. Running through the rest of the starting 11s for you, as mentioned, for South Melbourne in goal, Ayana Aoyagi. Number 3 is Annie Haffenden. Number 6, Bella Sewards. 7, Franny Iamano. 9, Liv Bomford. 10, Raquel Durales. 14, Misha Westland. 16, Nikki Furukawa. 19, TJ Vlanich. 20, Alana Byrne. And 22, Grace Taranto. Here is the captain, Iamano, who's making the first foray into the Spring Hills box. It was awkward to deal with for Spring Hills goalkeeper Jenna Ibrahim, but it has a little bit too much height and will roll behind for a goal kick. Spring Hills ahead of Jenna Ibrahim in goal is number 4, Christina Souza, number 9, Eri Narita, number 12, Natasha Dakic, 15, Julia Budiongo, 17 is Maya Markovsky, 18, Alex Sinclair, 19, Eri Yamashita, 20, Yukina Tamamura, number 30, Montana Matthews, and number 36 getting a run from the under-20 squad is the 19-year-old Chelsea De Silva. Very much the kind of stage where you can make a bit of a name for yourself in Victorian football. South Melbourne looking to assert a little bit of control on the ball at the back. This is Markovsky for Spring Hills. Ball sent forward by Souza, and now Spring Hills make their foray down the left-hand side. Cross sent in, always favouring Taranto, one of the big-bodied defenders for South Melbourne. No doubt play a part in trying to keep tabs on Markovsky, one of the mid-season recruits for Spring Hills. Such a prolific goal scorer in her most recent campaign with Bulleen, before heading off to Canberra United for the A-League Women's season. Budiongo lofting the ball over the South defence, but far too much on it for any of her attacking colleagues, so South will reset from the back. Ball sent inboard towards Sewards. It was coughed up in a dangerous spot, but South quickly able to reclaim the ball through their goalkeeper, Aoyagi. Press applied by Sinclair, but Aoyagi is composed. And South Melbourne have worked their way up to just about the halfway line. South coming into tonight having arrested a bit of a form slump that they were suffering over the last few months. They've won 2 of their last 3 games now, against Bentley and Alamein on the weekend. Much needed couple of wins. They made a really hot start to the campaign, scoring goals for fun and everything. But things have started to go a little bit awry, far from beyond recovery. And you look at South's record, that those first 7 games where they won 6, or rather 5 of their first 6 league games, plus of course advancing in the Nike Cup with a 3-0 win against Eltham Redbacks. That saw them end their first 7 competitive fixtures with 26 goals, going at a rate of almost 4 a game. In the 8 games since those first 7, South have scored just 9 goals. So a really dramatic reduction in the scoring capacity of the South Melbourne team. They'll be hoping that, having gotten back on the winners list in the last few weeks, some of the goals will start to flow again. To be fair to South, they have still managed to remain competitive, largely off the back of a solid defensive game as well. Second fewest goals conceded in NPLW Victoria, 14 in 14 games. Here are the home team on the ball as Westland spreads it out to Vlanic. Looks in board, headed clear. And now Markovsky uses the overlapping run as Spring Hills charge forward. Strong run made by Narita before eventually South Melbourne were able to reclaim possession. Westland finds Sewards. Run made by Vlanic, also has Iamano further wide. And Iamano happy to play it off to Silva and out for a South Melbourne throw. Throw sent in by Vlanic to Liv Bomford. Bomford well marshalled by Yamashita. And South have just crept their way up the pitch now. Well in the final third of Spring Hills. Throw in sent to Bomford. This is Iamano hoping to get in the cross. Strong defending from Souza, puts it back out over the byline. Doralis trying to turn in the box. And the Spring Hills defence deals with that effectively. Can perhaps see or hear the protestations from Doralis, who's very unconvinced by the referee's decision that the last touch came off a South Melbourne player. That ball long over the top finds its way through to Narita. Solid defending by the combination of Taranto and Haffenden again, though. Spring Hills ball into the area. It's an awkward one to deal with for Aoyagi. Puts it behind for a corner. From a long way out, a speculative shot came in and just the deflection, making things a little bit awkward for the goalkeeper. And Spring Hills will have the first corner of the night. See the routine with the massive bodies deep in the box, getting ready to make what you'd imagine would be a series of runs. Amazing in all directions. Montana Matthews, I think, just having a little bit of trouble with her gloves before she sends in the delivery. It's a fairly straight-on approach. Ball sent in, it's right on the goalkeeper's head. It finds its way through the pack of players. South Melbourne scrambled the ball clear. Spring Hills, though, causing a little bit of panic at the back for South. It's been a good couple of minutes spell for the visitors as they try to assert themselves in this game. Might be able to see faintly on the camera that the rain is very much coming down. It has been pretty much all day on Melbourne's east side, making its way across to the city as well. Dakic attempting to send it forward, eventually falls back out to Tamamura. South Melbourne look to rebound quickly with the long ball over the top towards Doralis. And Furukawa able to win a throw for her team. South Melbourne getting to this stage of the Nike Cup with a couple of wins. First that 3-0 over Eltham Redback. Raquel Doralis scoring 2 of those goals. She's been relatively prolific in this competition. Nikki Furukawa the third, and then in the last round, coming up against one of the toughest draws really they could have gotten against Avondale, the team who've been really dominating in large parts of the VPLW competition this season. South doing just enough to get through. 2-1 the full-time score. Goals from Raquel Doralis again, as well as Misha Westland. Well, as far as things have been not exactly smooth sailing for South up until this point of the campaign, if they find themselves in a Nike Cup semi-final, second spot on the NPLW ladder, I think all things considered they'll be fairly content with how things are going. Yamano's touch is picked up on by Bomford, who goes back to her captain. Inboard to Doralis. Has Westland for support. He looks over to the right-hand side, hoping for Nikki Furukawa, who's offside. flick-on attempt by Markovski. It was always South numbers favoured to it as Alana Byrne retreats to her goalkeeper. Again, Aoyagi's put under a little bit of pressure, but deals with it well. Taranto trying to avoid turning into trouble, uses Doralis. And the last touch off a Spring Hills player, so South will continue their run forward. Look to be Yamashita, the player making the defensive effort there. Now Ibrahim, the goalkeeper for Spring Hills. That ball lofted upfield, and again, the route of attack is setting away Eri Narita down the left-hand side. She's got a little bit of space, fires it towards goal. Ends up in the side netting, wasn't able to get the maybe movement on the ball that she was looking for as she thundered it towards Ayana Aoyagi's net. Spring Hills mentioned their really solid first campaign in the top flight of Victorian football. As things stand, sitting in 8th spot, 17 points from their opening 14 games, as there's a long-range attempt that was slightly awkward for Aoyagi, bouncing just before the goalkeeper, but has done well to deal with a number of situations that could have been made to look more awkward had she not dealt with them so well. Haffenden goes across to Byrne. Byrne inside to Westland, and it's a clever first touch out wide to Taranto. The return ball as well. South charge forward. Ball sent out to the right-hand side where Furukawa beats Matthews and gets the cross inside. It's awkward to deal with, and it's bundled over the line. South Melbourne have the lead. A scramble in the box, a wonderful delivery by Nikki Furukawa. Despite the desperate defensive efforts from Spring Hills, they were unable to prevent it from being turned into the goal.
Goal scorer for South Melbourne, number 10, Raquel Doralis. The score is South Melbourne 1, Spring Hills 0.
Indeed, as confirmed by the voiceover, the final touch did come from Raquel Doralis, who is just about on the deck. But she continues her hot streak of goals in this Nike Cup. That her 4th this season. And it all came really from that perilous cross sent in from Nikki Furukawa. So is there to be a quick response from Spring Hills? Julia Budiongo's been sent to the deck by TJ Vlanic. Spring Hills do still have the ball, or at least they did. And with it going out of play, Angelique Manjon will pause to check on Julia Budiongo, who's prone on the deck at the moment. Budiongo returning to the top flight of Victorian football, having taken a sabbatical last year. Doesn't look to be too much of an injury concern. Back on her feet and up and running. Certainly plays her part in what has turned into one of the more formidable attacks in the Victorian game, alongside Alex Sinclair, of course, and Maya Markovski Mary Narita as well. We've seen some of her runs in behind. De Silva's ball forward is met by Vlanic. Iamano looking towards Doralis, but it was a good touch from De Silva to take it away from her. Tamamura and Dakic now happy to pass the ball between themselves. Ball falls into the path of Doralis. Looking out to the right, too much on it for Westland. And eventually the safe option is pursued by Matthews. That goal from Raquel Doralis, the first that Spring Hills have conceded in the Nike Cup this season. They've gotten to this stage with a pair of 1-0 wins against Ringwood City and FE Academy. That last win against Academy, the scorer of the goal, Maya Markovsky. She's out there on the park tonight and will hope to be similarly effective as Spring Hills attempt their comeback. Haffenden now for South, out towards Vlanic. Vlanic hoping to loft it over towards Bomford, but Souza using her head in more ways than one. Seen both teams very happy to control the ball with their central defensive pairing when they've had it at the back. Hampton out to Vlanic, inboard to Westland, and finally they pick their way through. Doralis slipping at the inopportune moment. Still, the attack continued for at least another second or two. The ball is given away. Spring Hills, though, will be rescued by the referee's whistle. Alex Sinclair back on her feet. And so Dakic will be able to restart play with the ball into the South Melbourne half. She goes the direct approach, almost falling conveniently into the path of Sinclair. Markovsky now creates a bit of space before getting the shot away. That one fairly comfortable for Aoyagi. It's been a lively opening 21 minutes to this Nike Cup quarterfinal. Both teams showing plenty of endeavour as we see our first yellow card of the evening. Just a little tug back resulting in Christina Souza's name being taken by Angelique Manjon. Both teams very happy to control the ball at the back, but once they start looking forward, they're ruthlessly efficient, wasting no time as they look to catch the defence out with their ultimate attacking move. Sewards hoping to do so by picking out for Rakawa. It was a little bit too much left to do for the South Melbourne winger, though. Iamano for South. Crosses into the box. Important header clear from Tamamura. Now Spring Hills can look in the opposite direction. Budiongo and Markovsky not able to work their way through. And eventually possession is coughed back up to the hosts. Iamano trying to slide the ball through for Doralis. Doesn't work out on that occasion. And once again, Erin Arita is charging down the wing, this time the right-hand side. And this time she's not able to keep it in play. Really is breathless football. Both teams not letting the game slow down. They cannot be accused of not throwing everything at this first 45. That ball inside ends up behind the South Melbourne attack. It's an awkward one to deal with for Narita. Indeed, it's picked up by Bomford, who goes from long range. And a little bit too much height. Spring Hills survive another scare. Well, despite being 1-0 down and probably the second best team up to this point, Spring Hills, they've hardly been uncompetitive. Just at this point, South Melbourne being a little bit more effective both in their control of the ball and the quality of chance creation. The press for Spring Hills has reaped a handful of rewards, but maybe not quite as much as they would have been hoping for. Nikki Furukawa has the chance, but is once again flagged for offside. Spring Hills doing well to hold their line. As mentioned, the winner of this tie through to the semi-finals where they'll play Bulleen Lions. That one coming sometime around mid-July at the Veneto Club. Bulleen, a team that Spring Hills have really struggled against this season, losing both of their fixtures. Albeit the first one in particular required some late drama to get Bulleen over the line. South, meanwhile, they drew 2-2 in their earlier meeting with Bulleen this season. The second one still to come at the Veneto Club. So potential for 2 games against Bulleen at the Ven in relatively quick succession for South Melbourne if they are to get through tonight's tie. Markovsky uses the run from Matthews. That ball sent clear, and Yamashita's touch was the last one. Of course, the other semi-final already set, Heidelberg United against Bandura United. So you'd very much expect Heidelberg to find their way through to the Nike Cup final, but Bandura have proven themselves to be quite an impressive cup team in particular over the last few seasons. This is Vlanic. Strong touch to skip past Souza. Ball inboard hoping for Doralis, but instead it's Tamamura who takes a big risk with that touch. Gives it away now to Bomford, who sends it centrally. This is Seward, slips at maybe the worst moment. And that allows Spring Hills to take the ball and charge forward. Markovsky with a clever touch towards Souza. Now Yamashita retreats. And sent forward by Tamamura. Too much on the ball though. TJ Vlanich again with the header, one of the key mid-season recruits for South Melbourne, joining after another A-League season with Melbourne City. He's a highly accomplished operator both at this level and at the highest level of competition in the country. TJ Vlanich. Overseas experience as well. He's also representing the Serbian national team. This is Markovski for Spring Hills. It's a powerful run down the left-hand side. A little bit too powerful for her own good in the end. She's not able to escape the defensive clutches and get the ball into the box. Bomford now for South, looking inside to Westland, who has a central midfield partner, Sewards, in position. Here's the run from Taranto, still Taranto. The ball falling out now to Bomford. Touch a little bit too heavy, but South Melbourne continue to throw numbers forward. Vlanich contemplated the cross, instead is patient, using Westland. Now Sewards looks more direct. No one was making the run that she was after. They're certainly in control of proceedings at the moment, South Melbourne. Just over half hour gone in this quarter-final. Early meeting between these two teams, of course, also took place here at Lakeside. We see Bomford subject to a crunching challenge and an illegal one too, according to our referee. And that will create a really good opportunity on goal for South Melbourne. Tom Markovski on the Spring Hills bench voicing his dissent at that call. The decision has been made and it presents a really good opportunity for one of South Melbourne's set-piece specialists. It will be the player who won the foul, Olivia Bomford, who steps up. Just a little bit further out than would perhaps be ideal for a direct free kick taker. Bomford, though, will try her luck. It's a curling effort as well. And draws a good save from Ibrahim. Really decent attempt from Liv Bomford. Indeed, the distance did just prove to be a little bit too much of a barrier to overcome. But it does mean South Melbourne will get another chance at a delivery into the box and to cause some trouble for Jenna Ibrahim. South Melbourne going with the approach of crowding around the opposition goalkeeper, making it very difficult for Ibrahim to influence the attempted defence of this delivery. It's into the middle of the box. And there's a coming together inside the area as well. Nothing untoward according to the referee, so Spring Hills still have the chance to perhaps spring a counter. Bomford over towards Doralis. Saw the assistant referee contemplating putting up the flag, but happy to let it play, and it's a moot point in the end as Ibrahim collapsed on the ball. And the end result of all of that is a Spring Hills throw. That earlier meeting between these teams at this venue came back in round 7 of the NPLW season. 1-1 the full-time score at the first ever competitive meeting between these two clubs. Olivia Anderson, the scorer for Spring Hills. She's still not back in the matchday squad, whilst for South Melbourne, the scorer was Alana Byrne, taking up one of the central defensive positions tonight. Fair to say, both of these squads have changed quite a bit since that first coming together. Bomford, using the run from Taranto, decided to unleash, but was well blocked by Yamashita. Sinclair applying the press. Should mention as well that earlier meeting really was the start of the downfall of sorts for South Melbourne this season, after winning 5 of their first 6 league games, drawing the other, plus the win over Eltham Redbacks. Things haven't really quite been the same since that 1-1 draw against Spring Hills, which followed that hot start. Having won 5 of those opening 6 league games, South have won just 2 more since then, both of them in the last couple of weeks, or 3 weeks to be more precise. Here is the scorer from that first meeting, Alana Byrne, using her central defensive partner, Annie Haffenden. Alex Sinclair's been leading a fairly lonely charge with the front press for large periods tonight. Once again, South Melbourne have no trouble getting the ball forward. Nikki Furukawa now making the run. Some awkward defensive attempts. The shot from Doralis, it's a really wonderful block. I think from De Silva getting across and denying the South Melbourne attempt. South, they will have a corner kick to follow. Ball inside. Skims off the top of her head, and Julia Budiongo is there to arrest the ball's run. Taranto back into the area. Sewards with the attempt. And the end result of all of that is we're back where we started with South Melbourne to deliver again a corner from that far side. Again, the in-swinging delivery, that one more comfortably dealt with by Maya Markovsky. The Spring Hills counter-attacks just haven't quite found their stride up to this point. That one comfortably dealt with again by South. Silva stepping up, trying to get there ahead of Iamano. She got there first, but wasn't able to take control of the ball. That pass always favouring Dakic. Dakic on the receiving end of a sliding challenge from Franny Iamano. And a couple of former Western United players going head-to-head. Iamano checking that Dakic is all good, and indeed the central defender is back on her feet. Iamano looking towards the box. That one met first by Tamamura. He's now wrestling with Furukawa. Nikki Furukawa crossing towards the goal. That one chaperoned over the goal line by Jenna Ibrahim. Maybe not so much the goal line as behind for a goal kick, but in any case, Spring Hills are right now enduring a really tough period. South Melbourne are going full throttle with the pressure. Westland finds Doralis, now Bomford. Trying to pick the clever pass through the Spring Hills defence. Instead, Maya Markovsky is on the ball for the Stallions. Narita gets it to Budiongo. Have of course seen Maya Markovsky playing a bit of a deeper role since joining Spring Hills in mid-season. Interesting choice considering how prolific a scorer she's been for the last 12 or 18 months. Alana Byrne sends it towards Taranto. Couple of former Baleem players for Furukawa now. Cross in board, finds the head of Doralis. Now it's Bomford, back to Doralis, and wide of the post. A scramble at the goal mouth. First Doralis, then Bomford, back to Raquel Doralis. And the finishing touch, not quite there. Dribbles wide of the post. And with just a handful of minutes until the halftime break, Spring Hills will perhaps be grateful if they're able to get to the interval, just the one goal behind. Because at the moment, if either team is to score the second goal of the game before halftime, you'd have to bet on South Melbourne. Yamashita looks inboard to Tamamura. A little bit higher up now is Markovsky. Gets past one but not the other, but it's a dogged run which ends up with Eri Narita pulling the trigger. That one palmed away by Aoyagi. De Silva has her experienced teammate in Sinclair higher up the wing. And there's a rare opportunity for Spring Hills to maybe spend some time in South's defensive third. Markovsky's header, hoping a teammate was in the vicinity. Sinclair again, dealing with Doralis, opts to go with the cross, but Alana Byrne was unchallenged. And after giving Franny Iamano a run, captain did really well to keep the ball in play and skip clear of Dakic. And as a result, Furukawa has some space on the right. Matthews doing her best to keep her at bay. Furukawa, though, wins out. In board, here is Westland. Cross goal towards Doralis. And maybe now the Spring Hills counter can come. Markovsky putting on the afterburners to race clear of Haffenden. Has Budiongo inside. Budiongo. A golden opportunity goes begging. Couldn't get the ball out from underneath her feet. And Diana Aoyagi gratefully collapses on the ball. Finally, they got the counter-attack right, Spring Hills. A fantastic run from Maya Markovsky. Budiongo was in the right position. Just couldn't get it out from underneath her. And for once, it's South Melbourne breathing the sigh of relief. After a first half where they have been firmly in control, there's very little between their lead and finding themselves level with their opponents. We are now into 1 minute of first half stoppage time. Maybe time for one final attack at either end.
The fourth official has indicated that there will be a minimum of 1 minute at a time.
Tamamura's ball ends up all the way through at the opposite goalkeeper's feet. And fair to say that Ayana Aoyagi, I think, will very gratefully accept a half-time scoreline of 1-0. Haffenden instructing a more senior teammate, TJ Vlanich, to take it easy. We'll get to the break with our lead intact, perhaps. Now Haffenden looking a little bit more ambitious. But I think it's safe to say that South have decided to be content with this 1-0 scoreline. And that's what they will get. Half-time at Lakeside. Nike Cup quarter-final action.
It's half-time here at Lakeside Stadium. The score is South Melbourne 1.
Are in the lead.
Spring Hills 0.
Raquel Doralis' goal after a bit of a scramble has the hosts in pole position to find their way through to the semi-finals of the Nike Cup. Still more than enough time, though, for Spring Hills to work their way back into the game. They showed right at the end of the half that they are very capable of scoring and really should have done so. Julia Budiongo with the golden chance. Welcome back to Lakeside. Second half underway for this fourth and final Nike Cup quarter-final for the right to take on Bulleen Lions in the semi-final of Victoria's domestic cup competition. Early opportunity for Spring Hills, who head into this second half trailing 1-0 against their host South Melbourne, thanks to a Raquel Doralis goal. And the early attempt from Budiongo leaving a little bit to be desired. Looks as if there has been a halftime substitution for Spring Hills as well. Mona Ensor is out there in the middle of the park. And from what it looks, she's taken the place of Christina Souza, who picked up that yellow card in the first half. So maybe that's some of Tom Markovsky's thinking. Giving Ensor the run, the player brought in from Geelong Galaxy in the off-season, Mona Ensor. Yamashita getting it out to Matthews now for Furukawa for South Melbourne. This is Alana Byrne, who set upfield towards the runner. Furukawa has Bomford central, opts to hold it up for the moment. Nikki Furukawa now gets the cross away over the top of the goalkeeper and ends up on the opposite side with Franny Iamano. Byrne and Taranto just putting themselves under a tick of pressure, get the ball away nonetheless. Yamashita retreating to Montana Matthews. Now Iamano manages to wriggle free from Budiongo, and the offside flag will curtail that South Melbourne attack. So South Melbourne looking to pick up where they left off in the first 45. After a fairly competitive opening, South gradually seized control of the general play, and by the time we got to half-time, it was more or less one-way traffic. The one exception of that Spring Hills counter-attack opportunity, falling the way of Julia Budiongo, but Stallions unable to put it away. And because of that, they head into this second half with it all still to do. Markovsky's under plenty of pressure. Eventually plays it back to De Silva. Vlanich for South Melbourne, in board to Bomford. And now the run is made by Grace Taranto in the right full-back position. Hoping for Sewards. And Yamashita takes it out for a throw. Doralis now turning inside. Sewards picks up where she left off. This is Bomford. South Melbourne had their second. And Olivia Bomford puts South Melbourne in pole position to advance to the semi-finals. A clever cross sent in by Bella Seward, and Bomford was there and thundered it into the roof of the net.
Goal for South Melbourne FC, number 9, Olivia Bomford. The score is South Melbourne 2, Spring Hills 0.
And so with that, the challenge, which is already substantial for Spring Hills, now a really steep mountain to climb. We'll have a redo of that kickoff. That goal for Liv Bomford, her 4th of the season, has turned into one of the key contributors in the South Melbourne attack. Furukawa, loft to get into the penalty area. Spring Hills numbers win out in that instance. Now Markovsky has a little bit of space down the right-hand side. They need a response quick, Spring Hills. Markovsky goes herself. The angle, though, always favouring Ayana Aoyagi in the South Melbourne goal. Budiongo winning back possession high up. Misha Westland, though, a step ahead. And if they are able to see out this second half, South Melbourne, this win coming at a really good time for them as they head towards the latter part of their campaign, keeping themselves in contention for not only the cup, but as we know, still right in the finals race. It'll be a fairly substantial task to bridge the gap between themselves and Heidelberg in terms of the MPLW ladder. Currently 8 points behind the Burgers. Although they do have a chance to start making some inroads this weekend. Really is a big week for South. But now it's Spring Hills on the attack through Sinclair. Sinclair met by Haffenden, and even though she got away from the defender, she had a little bit too much pace overrunning the ball, did Alex Sinclair. Ensor did well to get it back to her central defender in the form of Tamamura. And again, Tamamura this time goes more direct, went under the boot of Westland, but South Melbourne were able to recover. Hiamano in behind Dakic. De Silva's central alongside Tamamura. It's a strong run from the South Melbourne winger. Cross inside, though, headed away. Tamamura hoping for Markovsky. Has stayed higher up the park, the central defender, but Westland used her body smartly to shield the ball. Just to finish that point about South Melbourne's big week, of course, the win against Alamein on the weekend. They're now in a really good position to progress in the Nike Cup. And then on Saturday, they're back here for maybe the biggest of the lot. Top of the table clash against Heidelberg United. A win perhaps keeping their premiership hopes alive. Heidelberg could just about sew up the title with a positive result. This is Raquel Durales now for South Melbourne. The cross is a good one. narrowly beats Nikki Furukawa and the post. So the end result for Spring Hills is a goal kick.
Substitution for South Melbourne. Coming off, number 6, Bella Swords, being replaced by number 8, Akeisha Sandu.
So Akeisha Sandu is into the mix. Will replace Bella Swords, you'd think, in that central midfield position. Sandu, who made a return to South Melbourne this season after a year away at Calder. And now we'll add some reinforcement to the South Melbourne midfield. Here is Maya Markovsky, trying to get Spring Hills on the board and giving them somewhat of a lifeline. Lost track of the ball and gave away the foul on Haffenden. Of course, you'd expect that each time now Spring Hills go forward, they'll have to commit more numbers. Apart from that one Budiongo chance, they've struggled to really threaten the South defence, to be in the position often enough really to do so. And as they do commit those bodies forward, we've already seen South looking even more threatening when they spring forward, as we may indeed see now. This is Sandu. Player just brought on off the bench, out to Furukawa. Has Doralis in the middle of the box. Well defended by Montana Matthews, and the result is a South Melbourne corner. Third goal now for South would surely just about kill off the tie. Sent in by Vlanic, right into the heart of the box, and Haffenden looked to get it back out wide. Budiongo, scrambling defensively, did so effective. And good control by Westland to bring an end to any counter-attack. Taranto, touch from Bomford, finds its way all the way through to Dakic. Bomford again now on the turn. And Ensor just losing track of the ball for a moment. Sandu dealing with some close attention from Dakic, and that prompts the referee's whistle. For a team who early on in the season made their name as prolific scorers, South Melbourne, they were able to see out this game without conceding. It would be a fourth consecutive clean sheet across both the Nike Cup and NPL competition. Proving themselves to be a difficult nut to crack. Certainly a good omen heading into that big game against Heidelberg. Bomford's touch. Opts to play it back to Westland. Haffenden stepping out of the defensive line, back to Misha Westland. The Spring Hills numbers close. Narita won it back and will now look to jump onto that ball sent forward by Markovsky. Erin Narita uses Matthews. It's a heavy first touch, but she recovered well. Sent into the box by Matthews, well over the heads of any teammates. And once again, Ayana Aoyagi will claim the ball. Spring Hills readying another substitution. Don't have much to lose at this point in the game. Matthews charging out of the defensive line. Markovsky using Tamamura. And now Matthews with the left-footed cross beats a host of players. And the end result is TJ Vlanich on the ball at left fullback for South. Westland uses Bomford. Did well, the former Bentley player, to wrestle away clear. Now Alana Burns, touch for Aoyagi, could put her goalkeeper in trouble. Markovsky brought down. Shouts from the Spring Hills bench. The result's a Spring Hills throw. But was that the chance Spring Hills were waiting for to get themselves back into this game? A momentary lapse in defence for South Melbourne.
Spring Hills coming off number 15,
Spring
Julia
Hills just unable to take advantage.
By number 7, Rachel Gillies.
That break in play allows for Rachel Gillies to be introduced into this game, the player brought in from Preston in the off-season. She replaces Julia Budiongo. So Tom Markovsky searching for routes back into this game. Really, he didn't need to look hard. It was revealed right before his players about a minute ago. But they weren't able to take up the opportunity and head down that path. Well, that chance, though, maybe just revitalise Spring Hills a little bit. Last touch there off Alex Sinclair. Or perhaps a change of mind, or an overrule from our central referee. And so, Spring Hills will have themselves a corner. Cross inside, difficult for Aoyagi. Falls the way of Yamashita, who put it back into the mixer. And it deflects wide and behind for a goal kick. So another opportunity for the visitors, Spring Hills. Once more, they're not able to take it. And South are continuing to edge closer to that semi-final bow. A little bit of concern in the aftermath for one of the South Melbourne players. I believe it's Alana Byrne, who's just a little bit proppy getting back to her feet. And eventually we will get back underway. Tom Markovsky expressing his displeasure at the amount of time being taken to restart play by South Melbourne. Indeed, eventually South do get us going again. Won't be too long until these sides meet for a third time this season. In fact, in the same month, later in July, Spring Hills will welcome South Melbourne to Springside Recreational Reserve. That around 18 fixture on a Friday night. There's a chance yet for South to get, or for Spring Hills rather, to get some revenge if indeed this result does go the way of South, as it looks to be at the minute. After this weekend, that game against Heidelberg for South, they then face a couple of fixtures away from Lakeside. They head to CB Smith to take on Brunswick Juve before that game against Box Hill at the home of the Matildas. Then, of course, Springside Recreational Reserve. There will be a Nike Cup semi-final perhaps in between those fixtures before, it's not till next month that they finally return to Lakeside to play Preston, South Melbourne. Spring Hills, meanwhile, have a tough assignment this weekend in MPLW. They head to the Ven to take on Burundara. And then following that, a couple of, well, they'd consider eminently winnable games against Bentley and FV Academy before they do take on this South Melbourne outfit again. And a couple of positive results will ensure their survival in the top flight of Victorian football, Spring Hills, if it isn't already locked in. Matthews. Important touch in there from Taranto. Matthews. Throw over the top. Just about kept in by Sinclair. Really the first spell in the game of sustained attacking pressure for Spring Hills. Narita makes a little bit of space and looked to send it goalward, but that one out of play. And with that, South Melbourne will make a change of their own. Raquel
Substitution
Durales'
for South Melbourne
has come
FC.
to an end.
Coming on, number 23, Alexis Lazopoulos. Replacing
Durales will be the player who made her senior debut at the weekend. Alexis Pantazopoulos, just 16 years of age. And now getting a couple of senior runouts in a row. South Melbourne look to get through. They hope will just be another 20 minutes of football. Book their spot in the semi-finals of the Cup. Spring Hills, though, may still yet have something to say about it. Turn from Sinclair. Took really well to keep the run going. Looked centrally, but unable to pick out a teammate. Bomford now for South, out to Taranto on the right-hand side. Keisha Sandhu for South Melbourne. Goes for goal. Little dribble though, right into the gloves of Jenny Ibrahim. There is still time for Spring Hills. South Melbourne will be happy to take some more seconds off the clock with the ball at their feet. That ball sent forward by Taranto sets a task for Panterzopoulos. Yamano looking to continue the offensive foray. Sandhu has Bomford for support. And the retreat is made to Byrne, who didn't see Narita, who steals in and charges forward. It was a sliding challenge from Byrne. May have brushed her arm on the way through, but putting her body in the right position on Lana Byrne. Matthews towards Markovski. There is to be a route back into this game for Spring Hills. I think that Maya Markovski is perhaps most likely to be involved. 19 league goals to her name last season. Clever 1-2 between Narita and Markovski. Haffenden coming across to make the defensive tackle. And South Melbourne may be happy to see this game slow down a bit, become a little bit more stop-start, making it very difficult for Spring Hills to get any kind of run on. Stallions trying their best to apply the pressure. Markovski receiving the ball with her back to goal. Furukawa steals in, and now chance for Panterzopoulos to charge forward. Overlapping run comes from Iamano. Back to the youngster Panterzopoulos. Thought about the first time cross. Instead, goes back from whence the ball came. And makes the space for Westland on the edge of the area. Deflected shot. And Ibrahim will be grateful that it ended up being a straightforward claim. Could have very easily been an awkward one to deal with. Spring Hills, as we speak, 8 points clear of the relegation zone, 9 points outside the top 4. It's looking increasingly unlikely that they'll end up in real competition for either finals or relegation. Probably fair to say that had you offered that to them at the start of the campaign, they would have happily taken it. And a cup run to go on top of it. It's looking likely to end at this quarter-final stage. They've certainly proven themselves capable of competing on a number of fronts throughout a season as they continue to really establish themselves as one of the stronger forces in Victorian women's football. Yamashita loses out. Panterzopoulos uses Furukawa. has Tamamura for company. Got the cross inside back to Panterzopoulos. This is Westland, shifts it onto her left. Again considered pulling the trigger. Iamano is the one who takes the chance. It falls to Bumford. Liv Bumford! Wide of the post. So nearly a third for South Melbourne. With that miss, the slightest sliver of hope remains for the Stallions. It'll be an unlikely comeback, to say the least. And South Melbourne will do everything they know how to do to drain some seconds from the clock. That throw up towards Markovski. Looking out towards De Silva. Hoping for Narita, but well, the instruction from Coach Markovski was that pass had to be to the feet of Narita rather than trying to play her in behind. And a challenge perhaps of some frustration sent in on Vlanic by Narita, and that will allow South Melbourne to both reclaim the ball as well as a few more seconds. Looking as if it'll be a first Nike Cup semi-final for a couple of years for South. We're at the semi-final stage 2 years ago where they were beaten by Calder as part of their, of course, illustrious record in this competition. It was at this stage that they beat Preston Lions 2-1. And a similar scoreline they are on track for tonight. These two teams, of course, with a couple of tough assignments coming their way this weekend. A number of really fascinating contests coming to your screens in MPLW Victoria this weekend. You see that ball forward met by Haffenden, as well as the top of the table clash, and of course Spring Hill's trip to Burundara. We've also got Alamein taking on Boleyn, that one concurrent to the South Melbourne Heidelberg game. So very excitingly, an all top four affair, all taking place at the same time. Of course, a couple of results with significant ramifications for Spring Hill's opponents on the weekend, Burundara. Also some big games on the Friday night. FV Academy taking on Brunswick Juve. Game with significant implications for the relegation battle. And Preston Lions hosting Essendon Royals as well. Two of last season's finalists. Two teams who Spring Hills have toppled in the last few weeks as well. Run down the wing comes in, passed into Iamano. Franny Iamano crosses towards goal. Ibrahim reacted quickest. And as we head into the final 10 minutes of the 90, the Spring Hills comeback, if it is to arrive, has to start pretty soon. That won't do them any favours as that Gillies pass coughs up possession to South Melbourne. Westland just waiting to pull the trigger, eventually plays it short to Sandu. Westland again, this time up to Pantazopoulos. Finds Bomford. And South not taking any unnecessary chances at this point in the game. Vlanic thought about using Iamano. Just to go herself instead. Westland to Bomford. He saw the idea to chip it over to Pantazopoulos. Didn't pay off that time. And Tamamura gets it to Yamashita, who eventually retreats to the goalkeeper. Well, after the second South goal, we did have that period of 10 or 15 minutes where Spring Hills were well on top of the general play in the territory, pushing for that route back into this game. South have done a really good job just alleviating that pressure in the last maybe 10 minutes. Spent a lot more time on the ball and in the Spring Hills half, denying opportunities to their visitors. And with that, Spring Hills can look to their bench again. Looks as if Emily Girolamo and Holly Spizzato are the two players brought on, a couple of teenagers. Tom Markovsky turning to the youth system that he knows so well at Spring Hills. So a final charge made by the visitors. This is Markovsky. The ball falling into her path, and she decided to go herself. You can understand why. A little bit of frustration you might have been able to see there between Spring Hills players. It's been a frustrating night for the attackers. They haven't often found themselves in ideal positions. There were those couple of occasions, but they didn't take those chances when they arrived. And South Melbourne, with their accumulation, even though their goals were maybe less obvious or clear-cut in terms of their build-up, they were rewarded for their persistence. Santu for South Melbourne. The attempt to delay is semi-effective. Iamano in towards Furukawa. The first touch a little bit too heavy. And Girolamo happy to shepherd it through to her goalkeeper. Third goal for South would secure with as close to 100% certainty as you can really get that they will be in the semi-finals. Spring Hills again try to find their way through the rigid South Melbourne defence. Spizzato thought about making the run. Instead, Markovsky was forced into retreat. And Spring Hills unable to keep the ball in the field of play. Summing up a bit of their attacking night. They're not a team whose successes come from a copious amount of goals. They've been rather A success largely built off defensive solidity. No team outside of the top four have conceded fewer in NPLW than Spring Hills. But of course, this is so often the case for a team exceeding expectations defensively. It comes at the expense of attacking output. 19 goals from their 14 league games. Of course, just the 2 in this competition to get to the quarterfinal stage. But talking in terms of the league, it's only those 3 teams at the bottom in the relegation dogfight who've scored fewer than Spring Hills. They might get one here, though, as once again make the run down the right-hand side. Sinclair thought about the cross. Has 3 South Melbourne foes to get around. Understandably wasn't able to get an ideal result, but did well to earn her team a throw. And that pass from De Silva draws the offside flag from the assistant referee. South Melbourne yet again repel the Spring Hills attack. It's been the story of the night. South continue to hunt their 3rd of the evening. To put the icing on the cake, the crosses are not too bad. Just a little bit too much height, taking it over the attacking threats. Bomford lost her footing, and Spring Hills won themselves the throw. So it looks as if South will be heading to the Veneto Club for their Nike Cup semi-final. It's a venue where South haven't beaten Belleen for a number of years. In fact, you've got to go back to the Nike Cup semi-finals in 2021 to find that last occasion. Earlier that year in the league, South beating Belleen at that venue as well. So it hasn't been exactly a happy hunting ground against one of their main rivals for silverware over the last few years, South. And they'll be hoping to address that fact when they do indeed play that semi-final, from which they're now about 3.5 minutes away. Plenty of credit, though, does have to go to Spring Hills. They have really taken well to their first season in the top flight of Victorian football. There's a late chance for Furukawa with the shot. A strong save from Ibrahim. And got there ahead of Bomford as well. Very nearly a 3rd goal for South Melbourne, but the Spring Hill shot stopper doing her job. This is Gillies. Run comes from Matthews, who sent it towards goal, much too close to Ayana Aoyagi, and the goalkeeper will be very comfortable in claiming the ball.
The fourth official has indicated a minimum of 3 minutes at a time.
And indeed, we do head in to that second half stoppage time. It's turning into a very good week for South Melbourne. They needed it coming into games against Alamein, this one tonight, and then Heidelberg. All three here at Lakeside. All three with significant ramifications for their season and their hopes of silverware finals football too. They've passed the first two tests, and they're only a couple minutes away from doing so without conceding a goal. Of course, the biggest test, though, is still to come against Heidelberg. Then again, also the matchup which presents the greatest opportunity. They can close the gap to 5 points behind the Burgers on top. They'll be doing, well, a number of other teams around them a favour as well if they've still got aspirations of a late charge towards the premiership crown, as well as, of course, 3 valuable points in their pursuit to return to the finals. Spring Hills, their league position alone, you think would make this season considered largely a success if they're able to just maintain that trajectory. Maybe picking up a couple more wins between now and the end of the campaign. So to add on the cup run to it as well will be an extra little treat for followers of Spring Hills. That Ensor ball high up into the night sky. Markovsky, who had perhaps one of the better chances in this game. You'd almost be tempted to say that Spring Hills have had the 2 best individual chances of the contest. But it's South who have the 2-0 lead, and Nikki Furukawa might be about to make it 3. Furukawa, wonderful save from Ibrahim, diving to her right. And South Melbourne will take a chance for a very late substitution as well. Bridie Cooling
Substitution
coming
for
into
South
the game.
Melbourne, coming off number 22,
Grace
Grace
Taranto,
Taranto. And coming on number 2, the birthday girl,
Very
Bridie
minor,
Cooling.
early mark. And as you might have heard, Bridie Cooling's 21st birthday tonight. And quite the way to celebrate as she gets a few seconds on the park as her team progress to the semi-finals of the Nike Cup. That's full time.
Full time here at Lakeside.
It will be
Stadium.
South Melbourne
into the semi-final
taking
of
on
the
Melbourne in the Nike Cup semi-final.
Spring Hills. Our next game is this Saturday against Heidelberg United, first versus second here at Lakeside Stadium. See you there.
And South keeping their chances of multiple pieces of silverware in season 2025 alive. They've also arrested somewhat that form slump that they went through over the last couple of months, and now find themselves back in the winner's circle yet again. Spring Hills fought valiantly. They were a little bit overwhelmed by the end of that first half. They've still got plenty to be proud of so far this season. Their league campaign still looking strong. And they'll look to see out the remainder of the season in that comfortable mid-table spot. But that's all the time that we have from Lakeside Stadium tonight. South Melbourne through to the semi-finals of the Nike Cup. Goals coming from Raquel Doralis and Liv Bomford. Full-time score at Lakeside. South Melbourne 2, Spring Hills 0.